Hello everybody, we will start today with our next chapter in biology. ISS 10 standard is human evolution. Okay, we very well know that in nature every particular living organism has evolved. Okay, there has always been some changes in the organism. Okay, so there has always been a change in the organism from the earlier times to the new times, and there will always be some kind of the adaptation towards the change in the environment which is going to be bringing about the change in the living organism. So whether it be the smallest item like a bacteria, or it could be humans, or it could be even big animals, but each and every one will have some other the changes taking place through their complete right from the generation, that is thousands of years ago, say aaj tak mein, there will always be changes, and these organisms who do not adjust themselves or adapt themselves to the change in the environment slowly get extinct. So that is what exactly happens is, if you are not able to survive, then you are going to get extinct, because there is requirement is the change. There is a it is required that each and every organism needs to change or adapt itself with the change in the environment what we see over here. So anyway, we have this chapter over here which is which is about the human evolving from, like what we see, from the apes to the Homo sapiens. So that is what is the change what we have got in ourselves is being described in this chapter. So let's start with it. So what is evolution? For many years, the common belief was that the earth and all that is present on it was spontaneously created by God. Okay, so people just say, "Nahi, ye to sab kuch ek saath mein." I mean, everything came into existence just one at a time. The implication of this belief was that all species present on the earth had been there from the beginning and were unchanging. So, if we believe on this particular kind of theory, then we should be able to find out that अगर आज का जो human है, the same human should have been there several thousand years ago. So, but the fossils and the carvings and the things of the artifacts which are there in the from the the olden ages, we do not find them to be exactly same as what we are right now. So that makes it different. That shows that this particular theory that everything existed or it came into existence just at one shot is not true. However, according to autogenesis theory of the origin of life, life is said to have originated from non-living organic matter. Several scientific theories have been put forward to explain this organic evolution, but the prominent ones among them are the theory of inheritance of acquired characters and theory of natural selection. So there are plenty of theories. There are a huge number of theories which are telling about how the man got evolved, or how the changes in the organisms in the all across the globe took place in years. But out of those, the two theories which are very popular and very well known, and also which we are going to study, is the theory of inheritance acquired character. So the theory of inheritance of acquired character is one theory, and second one is theory of natural selection. These are the two theories which we are going to study in detail in this chapter. It has been agreed that the origin of life was a gradual process. So finally it got agreed that it was not about one instance, but it was, the theory came into picture that, okay, everybody agreed that there is a evaluation taken place, or there is a change which has taken place in due course of time for becoming a human. So a result of a series of physical and chemical changes in accordance with the changing environmental conditions. So yeah, this was a gradual process which resulted due to the physical and chemical changes which took place, so physical and the chemical changes which took place across, around us or around the living organisms or in the environmental conditions. Also, there is sufficient evidence to prove the complex higher organisms have evolved from simpler lower ones. So yeah, there are some evidences also which proves that the complex higher organisms of today have been evolved from simple organisms of the earlier past. Evolution is a slow, hence we can define evolution as a slow and continuous process whereby complex forms of life have emerged from simpler forms through millions of years. So the evolution of the complex kind of an organism from a simpler kind of organism with the changes which has taken place in millions of years is nothing but evolution. So we can define again, the evolution is a slow and continuous process whereby complex forms of life have emerged from simpler forms through millions of years. So now we study the theories of evolution. As I told you, there are two theories of evolution. The first theory is theory of, okay, I'll write down when I'm starting that thing. So right now it is just about the theories. French biologist Jean-Baptiste de Lamarck came out with an evolutionary theory and proposed that the driving force behind this evolution was the inheritance of acquired characters. Jean-Baptiste de Lamarck, the Lamarck theory is what it is called as. He said that the evolution takes place with the help of the inheritance, that is from one generation to another generation, the characteristics which are being given from one generation to the next generation, that is the inheritance. So the inheritance of the acquired characteristics. Okay, so whenever any particular animal or a human is going to acquire a particular characteristic in his life, he is going to inherit that to the next generation. So when he inherits that to the next generation, automatically there is a change in the new generation taking place, and hence there is a evolution taking place from one generation to another generation. So he sees that, in other words, organisms change physically as they struggle to meet the demands of their changing environment. Yes, organisms need to change. They need to change to adapt themselves to the changing environment. You can easily note this thing, like initially, if you ask your parents, they will say that Mumbai was a place which was very, very warm, it was very cool. In fact, it was very cool, and they would say that yes, when we came to stay over here like around 40-45 years ago, our kitchens never had a fan. They never needed a fan because the wind was blowing so nicely that we never needed anything like fans in many of the rooms. So that's why fan was limited. But nowadays, if you see the condition, what is the condition? That it is so hot that fan छोड़ो AC का ज़रूरत पड़ता है. But does it mean that the humans are not able to change over there? Yes, the humans have changed. The new generation automatically is able to adapt themselves to a higher temperature or even to sometimes a lower temperature as compared to what the older people can do. Accordingly, there is a change. There is a way the people can stay much healthier even at a higher degree of temperature, because the body has got adapted themselves. The body has adapted itself for higher temperatures. But of course, if you are going to be pampered and you are continuously being in AC because it's too hot and too hot, like if you are continuously feeling that it's too hot and you are just going to remain indoors and in AC, then of course that change is not affected much in your body. But yes, if you try to evolve themselves, if you try to adjust to the environment, then automatically the body is going to support you and it is going to see to it that it is able to adjust to the environmental conditions or the change in the environmental conditions. Right. So in other words, organisms change physically as they struggle to meet the demands of the changing environment. Such advantageous changes influenced by the environment are passed on to their offsprings. This classic example given by him was that of the evolution of giraffe. So he gave this theory of evolution of giraffe in such a way that this is how the giraffe got its long neck. Okay, this is what he says is how the giraffe got its long neck. So an English scientist, Charles Darwin, proposed another idea regarding the evolution of life known as theory of natural selection or Darwinism. So Charles Darwin was another person who gave his theory, and his theory was dependent on the nature selection. So natural selection was his theory, and it is also called as Darwinism. So now let's see about, so according to this theory, that is according to Darwin's theory, okay, we'll come back to the giraffe part later on in the chapter, or I think they have given in detail about the giraffe. Yeah, giraffe is given in detail later on, so we'll take that thing in later part, but right now we will consider the Darwin initial introduction. So according to this theory of Darwinism, according to this theory, organisms reproduce at a faster rate, resulting in a fierce competition for food and space. This creates a struggle for existence in which every individual is fighting for survival. So he says that each and every organism is going to have a good amount of reproduction taking place. The reproduction is going to be larger in case of organisms, so that they can retain their species, and when they do so, automatically it leads to shortage of resources, because the number of people are more whereas the resources is not changing. So this causes a shortage of resources, and hence starts the struggle for existence. So once a person is in a condition that his resources are getting short, he will try to struggle and he will try to do something extra to reach his targets or to meet his requirements. So accordingly, the organism is going to struggle for its existence, and this struggle for the existence is going to give rise to the change or the evolution of the organism. So this creates a struggle for existence in which every individual is fighting for survival. Now within a species there is considerable variation between individuals, and some individuals are better adapted to the environment than others. As a result, these individuals will be more likely to survive than others. This is called survival of the fittest. So it is seen that, of course, no two persons can be same. Similarly, no two same kind of organisms also can be of the same characteristics. One may be weaker, other will be stronger, and one will be able to adapt faster, other may not be able to adapt faster, and accordingly what will happen is the one who is able to adapt itself easily will be surviving, and hence we call it as the survival of the fittest. The survival of the fittest is the key word of the Darwin's theory. These individuals are most likely to reproduce and pass on their good qualities to their offsprings. This process is called as natural selection. So nature is selecting those only who can survive. So that is what he said. He said that the nature will only support those who are able to survive. Those who are not able to survive will slowly and steadily get extinct. And that is what exactly his theory is dependent on. Darwin stated that nature selects the fittest and rejects the weaker individuals. So this is what the Darwin had suggested. Now we come to the detail of the Lamarck's theory. So it is Lamarck's theory. This is about the inheritance of acquired character. So this thing is dependent on inheritance of acquired characters. Okay, characteristics or characters, yeah. So Lamarck proposed a theory which was dependent on the inheritance of the acquired characters. So as I told you about the giraffe, so that we are coming to that particular point now. Now, okay, Lamarck, that is from 1744 to 1829, proposed his idea of evolution on the basis of his studies on the patterns of fossils and matching the organisms of their environment. So what he studied was, he studied the fossils of the very older kind of, thousands of years ago, whatever was the skeleton available from the fossils of the human beings. He studied those, and he studied the environmental conditions at that particular time, and accordingly he determined, or he could find out, that what was the changes, what was brought about in the human body or even in any other organism throughout the life cycle, because this led to the inheritance of the acquired characters. So he compared living species with fossil forms and found that there exists a series of older to younger fossils leading to a present day living species. So there always was an older fossil to the younger fossil. That means maybe something which is 10,000 years old, then something which is 5,000 years old, then there is something which is 1,000 years old, then something which is 500 years old. ऐसे करके अलग अलग उसके fossils मिले और उनको उसने study किया to find out that what are the changes which have been brought about in the evolution of that species, and also the climatic conditions which were prevailing at that particular time. So he compared living species with the fossil forms and found that there exists a series of older to younger fossils leading to the present day living species. He explains his findings using the following two principles that were widely accepted at that time. The first one, use and deuse. It states that parts of the body that are used extensively become larger and stronger, while those that are not used deteriorate. So he said that if we are using a certain part of our body, the more we use it, the more stronger it becomes, and if we are not using a certain part of the body, slowly and steadily that particular part will go on deteriorating in its strength. So that is what he said, that so whenever somebody is continuously using a particular kind of organ of his body, then automatically it becomes stronger and stronger. So he explains this by taking the example of the giraffe. So this is the example of the giraffe we are talking about. Lamarck suggested that giraffe evolved from ground-feeding herbivores. So according to Lamarck, giraffe too were something similar to the ground-feeding herbivores which were used to eat grass. That is like the cow or the buffalo or the goat or the sheep. The giraffe too was an animal which was supposed to be of that kind, and it also grazed the leaves and the grass which was there on the ground. But at a later stage, the area fell short of its ground level vegetation and the giraffe took to feeding from trees. So others did continue using the same old method of eating the grass and the leaves which are nearby, but giraffe started eating the leaves which were on the top. It started eating something which was on the tree, and because it started doing that thing, slowly and steadily its neck became more stronger and longer, and accordingly there was an evolution of the giraffe having a long neck in the due course of time due to inheritance of the acquired characters. So as the generation to generation kept on moving, so slowly and steadily the neck of the giraffe went on increasing, because the requirement for the giraffe was that it required it to have a long neck so that it can eat the leaves from the top of the tree. Right, so it states that the part of the body that are used extensively becomes larger and stronger, while those that are not used deteriorate. He explained this by taking the example of a giraffe. Lamarck suggested that giraffe evolved from ground-feeding herbivores But at later stage, the area fell short of its ground level vegetation and the giraffe took to feeding from trees. Constant stretching of its neck and forelimbs, constant stretching of the forelimbs and stretching of the neck over many generations resulted in this structure become stronger and longer so as to reach higher foliage, that is the leaves. So because it wanted to eat the things which are higher and higher, so accordingly it started going up bigger and growing along taller and taller, and the neck also became longer and longer. So accordingly in generations it so happened that the whole giraffe, what we see right now, is being evolved. The next thing is inheritance of acquired characters. So next, first one was use and deuse, and the second one is inheritance of acquired characters. So yes, whatever the giraffe got in its previous generation with a longer neck, the next generation got a bit more longer, or it inherited the longer neck, and then it went on increasing in size. So it states that an organism could pass its modification to its offsprings. Lamarck postulated that the long muscular neck and forelimbs of the living giraffe were passed on to them by their ancestors, and the same characteristics will continue to appear generation after generation. So that's what he said, that the long neck and the strong forelimb, long and strong the neck and the forelimbs are the characteristics of the giraffe which it has got from its ancestors, and it is going to get further from next generation to generation throughout the life. So that's why you can see that the giraffe has evolved from a grass eating kind of animal to a tall long neck animal. Next what we see is vestigial organs. So here you can see that the same, we saw that something which is going to be used is going to become stronger, and something which is not used is going to become weaker. So that's why what we see is in our body also we have got certain organs which we do not use at all, or we can see that they are of no use. So you see, the vestigial organs are those organs that have ceased to be of any use to the possessor but still persist generation after generation in a reduced form. So they say that the vestigial organs are the ones which are present in our body. Even today it's present in our body, but we have stopped using them and we hardly use them at all. So that is why it is getting reduced from generation to generation. In other words, vestigial organs are the remnants of features that served important functions in the organism's ancestors. So yeah, it may be that in the olden days or our ancestors used those particular organs properly, and as we evolved and we did not need that thing any longer, but we do have it because our ancestors used to use it at that time. In man, there are over 100 vestigial organs. Some of them are given below. Wisdom teeth. Wisdom teeth are the last molars on each side of both jaws. The wisdom teeth are so called as they appear last at an age of about 17 to 20 years. They are smaller and less complex than the other molars. We hardly use our wisdom teeth for chewing our food. So you must have seen that the wisdom teeth are the last four molars which are there on the corner. You must, of course, you cannot get this right now. You will be getting it only after in the age group of 17 to 20, and sometimes even later than that. So people do get wisdom teeth even at the age of 23, 24. So and it is seen that even if it is not there, it is not going to make any difference to the person, because it is not it's so much of a corner of our jaws that it is many times not used for chewing the food. So that's why they can be said to be as vestigial organs, because they are no longer being used much. So that's the reason it is not something important that because I am yet not 17 or I am yet not 20, I have not got wisdom teeth, so I cannot eat such a thing. I cannot eat this thing because I don't have wisdom teeth. ऐसा कुछ नहीं है. So even if you don't have the teeth for a lifelong, it is not going to matter at all. You are going to remain, you are able to eat everything in the same manner as what you are doing right now. So that's why wisdom teeth becomes a vestigial kind of an organ. The second one is vermiform appendix. The vermiform appendix projects from the blind end of the cesium, a part of the large intestine. So in the large intestine, in the cesium part, there is a small projection coming out, and that is called as the appendix. Now appendix is of no use. There is absolutely no use of the appendix for humans. As a narrow worm-like tube, it is functionless vestigial organ in humans, but it is corresponding organ in herbivorous mammals like sheep. It is quite helpful in digestion of cellulose. Now it should be known that humans cannot digest cellulose, and that cellulose, because we are not able to digest, it is acting as a roughage for our body. So that cellulose is acting for is being used by our body as roughage. That means to clear out our digestive system. So because we are not able to digest the cellulose, we don't require the appendix, whereas the appendix is used for those animals which can digest the cellulose. So that's the reason we do not need these particular appendix at all. The third vestigial organ is pinna. Pinna is nothing but this ears. So these are the pinna. Now this pinna is again a vestigial organ because हम लोग कुछ भी कर ले, हम लोग इसको आगे कर ले, कुछ भी कर ले, we cannot hear anything much louder by this thing. The sound anyways is going to enter into our ears even in the absence of this thing. So that's why pinna is a vestigial organ. So pinna is a projecting lobe like part of the external ear, which simply provides a passage for auditory canal leading to the eardrum. We cannot move the pinna to gather the sound waves, which is its main function in other mammals. Yeah, in other mammals, yes, they can they can move their pinna, and by the movement of the pinna, they are able to hear something better. And sometimes even like cow and all, they can move it for moving the mosquitoes and the flies which is sitting over there. Even the elephant also waves its pinna for doing that thing. We cannot move the pinna to gather the sound, which is in its main function in other mammals. Complete but poorly developed and functionless muscle are present in human being in connection with pinna. Thus, pinna provides another example of vestigial organ. So, pinna is also a vestigial organ. So, you can see that these were the three vestigial organs of our body. That is of course there are many of them, but the three which we study over here is, first one was the wisdom teeth, second one was the appendix, and the third is the pinna. Okay, now we see the next thing, and that is Darwin's theory of natural selection. So what we have now is, okay, I can start the Darwin's theory in the next video.